while taking the family portrait, my son, cradling my sister, proclaimed to me, "I do not wish to lean on you. I desire to be with Auntie instead. I do not want you here. Please step away." After the family photo was developed, my husband positioned himself beside my sister, who held my son in her arms. It appeared as though they were the truly happy family of three. The following day, when I presented the divorce agreement to Jiang Yuyan, he furrowed his brow in confusion and asked, "You wish to divorce over such a trivial matter as a photograph?" I gazed at him steadily and replied earnestly, "Yes, it is precisely for such a small matter." On the day of our divorce, both Jiang Yuyan and I remained remarkably composed. The shares of the company would be transferred entirely to you as compensation. All stock options from the family would be mine. The 3 apartments in Manhattan would belong to you, while the villa in Los Angeles would be mine, along with 2 estates in the UK. The castle and the vineyard in France would be equally divided between us. Though our marital assets were considerable, they paled in comparison to the Jiang family's wealth, allowing for a swift division. The only point of contention arose regarding the custody of our child. Jiang Qi, merely 5 years old yet remarkably astute, rushed to embrace Jiang Yuyan, exclaiming, "I want to be with Daddy." His wary gaze darted towards me, brimming with suspicion, as if he feared I might take him away. I couldn't help but smile ruefully. His expression bore little resemblance to that of a child looking at his mother, more akin to that of a wary victim facing a nefarious trafficker. Perhaps sensing my intent to contest custody, Jiang Yuyan cast a glance my way and stated, "Jiang Qi belongs with me. After all, he carries the Jiang surname. The Jiang family can provide him with superior opportunities. Besides, you heard him. He does not wish to be with you. Rest assured, Xiang Nan is your biological sister and Jiang Qi's aunt. She will take good care of him." I interrupted him, speaking calmly. "Who says I wish to contest Jiang Qi's custody?" Jiang Yuyan appeared taken aback, and even Jiang Qi paused in surprise. After a moment, his expression shifted to one of skepticism. "Jiang Qi is your biological son, and yet you choose to relinquish custody?" I glanced at Jiang Qi, clad in an exquisite Chanel ensemble, an outfit I recognized as a gift from Xiang Nan, worth several tens of thousands. Indeed, it suited him far more than the clothes I had purchased. At that moment, he looked at me in disbelief, as if unable to fathom that I would not fight for him. "I will not contest," I replied coolly. "You may rest assured. I voluntarily relinquish my claim and will not dispute it further." After the divorce, I swiftly moved out and into a modest apartment of my own, purchased without any assistance from the Xiang family, funded by my savings from years of illustrating. Though small, at just over 100 square meters, it could not compare to the spacious 500 square meter flat overlooking the city center that I once inhabited. Yet, I felt an unprecedented sense of liberation. I had anticipated that divorce would feel like the tearing of flesh from bone, but instead, it felt akin to shedding a shackle. I understood that in Jiang Yuyan's eyes, our union was merely a soulless business arrangement. However, he remained oblivious to the fact that I had harbored genuine feelings for him all along. Before the Xiang family reclaimed me, I had been secretly in love with him. I vividly recall my first day at university. I arrived on an old green train, struggling with 2 large bags. Exhausted from the long journey, I stumbled as I ascended the steps. While others snickered and distanced themselves from me, Jiang Yuyan approached, extending his hand and asking, "Are you all right?" Strangely, though much of our 5-year marriage had faded in my memory, that day remained etched vividly in my mind. The youthful figure in a white shirt, illuminated by the light behind him, bent down towards me. The wind tousled his dark hair, revealing sharp, exquisite features akin to a finely crafted painting. In that moment, the summer sunlight cast a golden halo around him, and the surrounding clamor and cicada song fell silent, leaving only the pounding of my heart echoing in my ears. Afterward, he noticed my bleeding knee, arranged for someone to watch my luggage, and carried me to the infirmary. I still remember the refreshing, citrusy scent of lemon that enveloped me as I lay against him, making me feel self-conscious and shrink away, fearful that he might detect the odor from my long train journey. By the time I regained my senses to inquire about his identity, Jiang Yuyan had already departed. Later, I learned of him through the confession wall, where on the very first day of freshman orientation, he had appeared 7 times. Fellow students informed me that he was a 3rd-year finance major, heir to the Jiang family, and a true paragon of privilege. His girlfriend, Xiang Nan, also a finance student, was the belle of the campus. They were said to be engaged, awaiting graduation to marry. I was acutely aware that Jiang Yuyan and I belonged to entirely different worlds, and I had never dared to imagine drawing near to him. Throughout my 4 years at university, I merely observed him from a distance, hoping that, with time, my unrequited affection might fade. Yet in my final year, the Xiang family summoned me back. I recall that day vividly, wearing a faded cotton dress. I excitedly informed my foster mother that I had secured a job through campus recruitment with a monthly internship salary of 4,000, which would allow me to save enough for her surgery. Suddenly, a black car halted before me, and a man in a black suit respectfully invited me inside. Fearful, I watched as the vehicle wound its way up the hillside, stopping in front of a luxurious villa. My mother embraced me in tears, declaring that I was the true daughter of the Xiang family and that Xiang Nan was merely the child who had been mistakenly taken. They had finally located me, and henceforth we would be a family. I felt as though I were in a dream, and for days I wandered in a daze, unable to believe such a scenario could unfold in my life. Eventually, I learned that Xiang Nan had suffered a severe head injury in a car accident 6 months prior, rendering her a vegetable. Doctors believed she was unlikely to awaken. This accident had prompted the Xiang family to ascertain her blood type, revealing that she was not their biological child. My parents were eager to reclaim me, urging me to take Xiang Nan's place and continue the union with Jiang Yuyan. While I indeed held feelings for Jiang Yuyan, I could not bear to be united with him in such a manner, and I declined. My mother pleaded with me. Wanwans, after all these years of hard work, can you bear to watch the Xiang family fall into ruin? Can you stand to see your mother, at her age, forced to work to repay debts? She handed me a card. This contains 3 million. It will cover your foster mother's kidney transplant and subsequent care. If you agree to the marriage, I will immediately find a suitable donor. I ultimately succumbed to compassion and reluctantly acquiesced. Meanwhile, Jiang Yuyan, having just learned that his father had an illegitimate child, feared his inheritance would be jeopardized and was thus coerced into agreeing to marry me. Our wedding was orchestrated by others, and even the fittings for the wedding gown and rings were devoid of his presence. Ironically, I only glimpsed him briefly on the day of the ceremony, when the priest asked if he would take me as his wife. I distinctly saw a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, as if mocking me, or perhaps mocking himself. Prior to this, our relationship had been amicable enough, and we had exchanged nods in social settings. Yet now, I could clearly perceive the disdain and loathing in his eyes. He despised me for disrupting his relationship with Xiang Nan and resented himself for his inability to resist. That night, Jiang Yuyan drank heavily, and upon returning, he unceremoniously pushed me onto the bed. My first time occurred in a rushed and disheveled manner, entirely unlike the romanticized visions I had once harbored. I only remembered the unbearable pain and the swaying ceiling. The evening breeze could not dissipate the heavy scent of alcohol clinging to Jiang Yuyan. He pinned my wrist above my head, his gaze dark and filled with rage, devoid of any tenderness. This is what you wanted, isn't it, Xiangwan? Are you satisfied now? After his release, he withdrew promptly, refusing to share the bed with me. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The next morning, I found a heap of cigarette butts scattered across the balcony. A marriage that should have been bound by love had devolved into mutual disgust and resentment. That night, I conceived Jiangqi. In truth, after becoming pregnant, I shared a fleeting period of happiness with Jiang Yuyan. He apologized to me, admitting that his anger clouded his judgment when we first married, and upon reflection, I too recognized myself as a victim of this commercial union. He would consistently leave work on time to accompany me, gently caressing my belly to impart prenatal education to our child. He would stay up nights, massaging my swollen legs. And on the day Jiangqi was born, amidst the crowd clamoring around him, he came to check on me first. I vividly recall the nights when Jiangqi would cry incessantly after his birth. I was apprehensive about the nanny and postpartum caregiver. So, I would rise each time to attend to him. Jiang Yuyan, roused from his slumber, would groggily pull me back down, saying, "You continue to rest. I will take care of him." He had to work during the day and was deprived of restful nights, and soon dark circles appeared under his eyes. As Jiangqi grew older, he would hoist him onto his shoulder, and we would visit amusement parks as a family of 3. He would always buy 2 ice creams, one for Jiangqi, and one for me. Reflecting on that time feels like a beautiful dream. Perhaps my sense of unworthiness made me feel that happiness was laced with anxiety, like a serene sea bathed in moonlight concealing a monstrous creature lurking beneath, waiting to devour this fleeting tranquility at any moment. I never anticipated that those hidden feelings would come to fruition. On Jiangqi's 4th birthday, Xiang Nan awakened. On the day she awoke, Jiang Yuyan stood on the balcony smoking until dawn, having not slept a wink. My parents were overjoyed, showering her with concern, shifting the focus of their lives entirely onto her. It was then that I realized, in their eyes, their biological daughter, paled in comparison to this child they had raised with their own hands. Initially, I did not think much of it. I genuinely wanted to get along with Xiang Nan, who graciously smiled and wished Jiang Yuyan and me well, commenting on how adorable Jiangqi was. However, it did not take long for me to sense something amiss. Xiang Nan began to appear increasingly in our lives. Several times upon returning home late from work, I would find her dining with Jiang Yuyan and Jiangqi. Upon noticing my return, she would smile apologetically, saying, "I knew you were busy with work and wouldn't have time to cook, so I thought I'd come over. You don't mind, do you?" The meals she prepared were laden with oil and salt, which Jiangqi relished, exclaiming, "Auntie's cooking is so much better than Mom's. Mom's cooking is like pig slop. It's terrible. From now on, Annie can cook for Chi-Chi." She would accompany Jiang Yuyan to amusement parks with Jiangqi, even though I had expressly stated that he must finish his homework before playing. She indulged Jiangqi in sweets and snacks, despite my repeated insistence that he must eat his meals first. I endured this time and again, patiently communicating with Jiang Yuyan. Yet, he remained unconcerned. Xiang Nan is just the child's aunt. How could she harm him? What's wrong with letting the child relax a little? I see you just can't stand him having a good relationship with Xiang Nan. Jiang Yuyan and Xiang Nan's interactions increased, and Jiangqi grew increasingly fond of Xiang Nan. She could play the piano, spoke 4 foreign languages, and possessed an elegant demeanor and beauty. I realized that Jiangqi looked down upon me as his mother. Although I was ostensibly the heir to the Xiang family and had made considerable efforts over the years to blend into high society, that innate nobility was something one could not cultivate through effort. When he played with children from other circles, some would mock him for having a mother from the countryside. Jiangqi and I grew more estranged. Jiang Yuyan and I began to argue. The affection we once shared dissipated like ephemeral bubbles, leaving me in a state of hysteria, while Jiang Yuyan grew irritable and resentful. Our already fragile relationship could not withstand the relentless strain and ultimately eroded entirely. We began to sleep in separate rooms, ceasing communication, resembling strangers living under the same roof. Yet I had not contemplated leaving. For Jiangqi, I constantly reminded myself that the child needed a complete family. The decision to divorce was sparked by a trivial incident. A few days before Jiangqi's birthday, I was hospitalized for appendicitis. To celebrate his birthday, I was discharged 2 days early. However, upon arriving home, I discovered that my parents and Xiang Nan were already there. Jiangqi wore a birthday hat, and the table was adorned with a cake topped with colorful candles. The lively atmosphere came to a sudden halt the moment I opened the door. Jiang Yuyan instinctively frowned. "What are you doing back so soon?" I was at a loss for words. I had returned home early for Jiangqi's birthday, my wound still unhealed. But now I had to explain myself upon entering my own house. My mother stood up to smooth things over. "Xiangwan is back. She must be tired. So let her sit down and eat something." I presented the gift I had brought for Jiangqi. He had always wanted a pet, and after much deliberation, I had chosen a beautiful blue and white Napoleon cat, which I had just picked up from the pet store. I gently placed the kitten before Jiangqi, saying, "Darling, happy birthday." However, the anticipated look of surprise did not materialize. He merely glanced at it and, with a hint of annoyance, replied, "Auntie has already given me a puppy. I don't want so many pets." I froze, then noticed a carrier under the table containing a Maltese. "Oh, I see," I said, feeling somewhat awkward. Xiangwan pursed her lips and softly remarked, "I'm so sorry, Xiangwan. I didn't know you were also gifting a pet. Had I known you were giving Jiangqi this, I would have chosen something else." I didn't mind, but her comment implied that I had somehow wronged her. Jiang Yuan shot me a glance and said coolly, "You don't need to apologize. Xiangwan didn't inform you in advance, so how could you know?" Jiangqi ignored me, stood up, blew out the candles on the cake, closed his eyes, and began to make a wish. My mother, sensing the awkward atmosphere, suggested, "Today is Jiangqi's birthday. It's rare for our whole family to be together. Let us take a photo." Just as I was about to go over and embrace Jiangqi, he suddenly wrenched himself away from me and nestled against Xiangnan. "I don't want to be near you. I want Annie to hold me." He pulled away so forcefully that my hand stung, leaving me momentarily at a loss for how to react. Everyone found their places, with Xiangnan holding Jiangqi in the center and Jiang Yuyan beside them. My parents stood on either side. My mother's phone was set to delayed capture, and Jiangqi grew impatient, saying to me, "You don't come over. Just help us take the picture." No one objected to this suggestion. Under the lights, they appeared to be a true family, while I felt as though an invisible barrier separated me from them, clearly indicating that I did not belong. After a lengthy pause, I stepped forward and pressed the shutter. The meal that followed tasted like ashes in my mouth. I simply could not force myself to smile. Xiangwan glanced at me, suddenly put down her chopsticks, and furrowed her brow. "I'm sorry, Xiangwan, perhaps I shouldn't have come today?" A hint of melancholy crossed her face. "I merely wanted to celebrate Jiangqi's birthday. Did I intrude upon you all? If my presence displeases you, I want to come again. I don't want to make you unhappy." Before I could respond, my mother, filled with concern, interjected, "What nonsense are you saying? We are family. Why would you say such things?" She turned to me, her expression reproachful. "Xiangwan, your sister came with good intentions to celebrate Jiangqi's birthday. Why are you causing a stir on such a joyful occasion?" Jiang Yuyan also looked at me, his face darkening. "Things were going well, and you had to come back and stir up trouble?" I longed to speak, yet was abruptly interrupted by Jiangqi. He dashed towards Xiangnan, clutching her thigh, and exclaimed, "I don't want Auntie to leave." Immediately turning to glare at me, he declared, "I despise Mom. If anyone should leave, it should be her." The child's eyes, starkly clear, bore the innocent cruelty of youth. "It's all your fault. Auntie is upset because of you. Why did Mom recover so quickly? If only she stayed ill, she wouldn't have to come back." I stood in a daze in the living room, gazing at Jiangqi, the very child I had borne through a harrowing ordeal, upon whom I had poured all my love. My heart felt as though it had been pierced, aching so profoundly that I scarcely knew how to respond. Throughout the day's events, I had not uttered a single word. Yet, there they were glaring at me, fiercely protective of Xiangnan. After a long silence, I rose, grabbed my unopened suitcase, and pushed open the door. "Don't leave," I murmured as I passed Xiangnan. "I must go." We had not concealed the news of our divorce from the family. My mother had called me directly, her tone tinged with reproach. "Is this truly worth a divorce? Marriage is no trifling matter. What about the child? Can you bear to let him grow up without a mother?" I replied coolly. "With Xiangnan as his mother, he will surely be quite happy. You are simply being willful, always taking things to extremes. You and your father are not like this. It must be those adoptive parents who raised you this way."
Sigh.
I wearily remarked. "Isn't it enough? Who are you performing for now? Ever since Xiangnan woke up, you've been subtly trying to match her with Jiang Yuyan. You believe he was meant for her, don't you? Have you not considered that you want Jiang Yuyan and me to divorce, so that Xiangnan can marry him?" My mother faltered, her voice rising in a defensive tone. "How can you say that? You are both my children. My heart aches for you both equally." Suddenly, I found myself at a loss for words. I was no fool. Ever since Xiang Mei regained consciousness, they had been conspiring to create opportunities for her to interact with He Huaichuan. They still cared for Xiang Mei, believing that a good son-in-law like He Huaichuan should be reserved for her. Rest assured, once I divorce Jiang Yuyan, he will promptly marry Xiangnan. The family business will remain unaffected. Moreover, I will not claim a single item from the Xiang family. You may consider me as if I never existed." "What nonsense are you spouting?" I abruptly hung up, contemplating for a moment before blocking her number. I resigned from my job and purchased a plane ticket to Los Angeles. For years, I had been revolving around Jiang Yuyan and Jiangqi, and now, finally liberated, I yearned to explore the world. Upon boarding the plane, I discovered that the seat beside me was occupied by a remarkably handsome young man, dressed in a silk blue shirt that accentuated his fair complexion and bright smile. His hair was impeccably styled, and his high forehead lent him an air of refinement without pretentiousness. Could he be a celebrity? I mused, smiling politely as our eyes met. The flight lasted over 10 hours, during which I reclined my seat and succumbed to slumber, only to be jolted awake by a sudden, violent turbulence. It seemed we had encountered a bout of turbulence. The plane shook violently, and I felt as though I might lift off my seat. The flight attendants continuously reassured the passengers over the intercom, and although I felt a flicker of panic, it was not overwhelming. Just then, I felt a gentle nudge. Turning, I saw the handsome boy beside me, his face pale and devoid of color, his voice weak. "I'm sorry, but may I hold your hand?" Seeing my stunned expression, he added, "I mean no harm. I just have a fear of heights." His voice trembled, and his lovely, almond-shaped eyes seemed devoid of light, while his rosy lips quickly lost their color, quivering slightly. No woman could refuse such a request from a man of such appearance. I could hardly deny him even if he asked to hold my hand elsewhere.
Allricht?
For the next 20 minutes, he firmly clasped my hand, not releasing it until the plane stabilized. As I awkwardly shifted, pointing towards the restroom, I said, I need to use the restroom."
"Oh, I'm so sorry."
He abruptly released my hand, his fair face flushing crimson, even the tips of his ears turning red as he repeatedly apologized. I waved my hand with a smile, realizing I had unwittingly benefited from his striking looks. Upon disembarking, as I gathered my belongings, the boy thanked me once more. He ran his fingers through his hair, his voice low, "Thank you." His ears flushed again. However, the crowd was beginning to disembark, and I was swept away in the throng, unable to hear his words, only managing to smile and wave goodbye. That evening, I found accommodation in San Gabriel Valley, Los Angeles. The sky was a brilliant tapestry of stars, devoid of any haze, with diamond-like stars twinkling overhead, while the expansive Milky Way flowed freely, unobstructed. The oppressive weight I once believed impossible to shed dissipated in the vastness of freedom and primal wilderness. The following day, the hotel arranged for transportation to Runyon Canyon Park, only to inform me at the door that another guest would be accompanying me. As I glanced into the vehicle, I was greeted by the sight of the handsome young man from the plane, donning a cowboy hat and waving excitedly at me. What a coincidence! Throughout the journey, I learned that this young man, Gu Fei, was a travel blogger with over 3 million followers. He was quite talkative, engaging me in conversation throughout the ride. "Thank you so much for that day. I had a traumatic experience with turbulence during a flight when I was a child, and many people, including myself, were injured. So now I feel anxious whenever I fly." His cheeks turned slightly red. "If it weren't for you that day, I honestly don't know how I would have managed." Perhaps in gratitude, Gu Fei took it upon himself to look after me throughout the day, fetching me water and taking photos. I had never been particularly fond of having my picture taken, especially since my previous companion, He Huaichuan, always found it bothersome and took unflattering photos of me. Over time, I had begun to feel insecure, wondering if I looked unattractive. However, Gu Fei was enthusiastic, guiding my poses and encouraging me. "Stunning. You could debut right now. Stay still. This angle is absolutely gorgeous." I initially thought he was merely flattering me, but upon reviewing the photos from his camera, I was astonished to find that nearly every shot looked beautiful. In the pictures, I gazed slightly upward, my expression soft and smiling, a true portrait of my life. Overwhelmed with surprise and delight, I found myself chatting more freely, inquiring about photo filters, and he patiently explained each one, assisting me with color adjustments. While leaning beside him adjusting the colors, Gu Fei suddenly turned serious, raising a finger to his lips.
"Sure."
I was startled and quickly turned around. A multitude of white doves appeared behind us, and I had never seen so many doves at once. I gasped, instinctively edging closer to Gu Fei, my face pale. He wrapped his arms around me, shielding me until the doves flew away, then whispered gently in my ear, "Don't worry, it's all right." His voice resonated with a soothing vibration, and I realized I was leaning against his chest. Though he appeared slender, the muscles beneath his shirt were unexpectedly well-defined. I felt a rush of warmth to my face and quickly pulled away. On the return journey, the atmosphere grew even more lively as we shared dinner. To my surprise, Gu Fei and I discovered numerous common interests. We enjoyed similar films, shared many songs on our playlists, and he effortlessly engaged with every joke I made. In the days that followed, Gu Fei and I remained inseparable, capturing moments in photographs, embarking on excursions, and dining together. It was only when I regained my senses that I realized my album had amassed hundreds of his images. One day, as I eagerly prepared to venture out to photograph a sea of flowers, my phone suddenly rang. It was a WeChat call from Jiang Yuyan. His voice, somewhat weakened, came through the line, "Xiangwan, where are my painkillers?" Jiang Yuyan had long suffered from migraines, a persistent affliction over the years, and during periods of inadequate rest, he was prone to severe headaches. At their worst, he would turn pale, drenched in sweat, unable to utter a word. After exhausting various medications with little effect, I began researching similar cases online, eventually discovering an elderly traditional Chinese medicine doctor located over 1,000 kilometers away in another province. The prescriptions he provided would alleviate Jiang Yuyan's headaches almost immediately, granting him relief for a period. However, one particular ingredient needed to be prepared personally, which necessitated my flying to that province to procure a supply for him. I recalled that when I left, the medicine was nearly depleted. "It's in the second compartment to the left of the TV cabinet," I informed him. There was a rustling sound on the other end. "It's gone." "If it's gone, it's gone," I replied nonchalantly. "There's a business card in the cabinet. You can prepare it yourself." In our years together, the medicine at home was always well stocked. I had consistently noted the preparation dates in my reminders, never once forgetting. These matters were never brought to his attention, and Jiang Yuyan likely remained oblivious. After a long silence, just as I was about to hang up, he suddenly spoke again. Perhaps due to his headache, his usual assertiveness was tinged with an imperceptible fragility. "Xiangwan, there are still a few weeks left in the cooling-off period. You could reconsider. Jiang Qi is still young. He needs his mother." I remained silent, and after a pause, I calmly responded, "No, perhaps Xiangnan would be a better mother in his eyes." Jiang Yuyan seemed poised to say more, but I had lost the desire to listen and abruptly ended the call. At that moment, a realization dawned upon me. The suffering of my past life stemmed from my incessant yearning. Yearning for Jiang Yuyan's love. Yearning for Jiang Qi's affection. Jiang Qi bore an uncanny resemblance to his father, in both appearance and enduring preferences. Now I no longer wished to yearn. When I finally looked up, I found Gu Fei standing before me, having arrived unbeknownst to me. He asked no further questions, merely reminding me, "Our bonfire afternoon tea is about to begin. Are you ready to go?" I nodded. On the boundless grassy expanse, the hotel staff had cordoned off an area for the bonfire, setting up tables, chairs, and champagne. Gu Fei and I sat together, sipping wine while watching the sun sink into the horizon like a blazing inferno. After a few glasses, he suddenly glanced at the dimming sky and remarked, "I heard you on the phone this afternoon. Was that your boyfriend?" "No," I lowered my gaze. "That was my ex-husband. Well, not quite yet, but soon." "You're getting a divorce?" "Yes, we're still in the cooling-off period, but there will be no reconciliation." As the sky darkened, the world seemed to drift further away from me. Gu Fei suddenly said, "You must have endured a lot of grievances in your marriage." I was taken aback. I hadn't anticipated such a comment from him. Gu Fei smiled gently. "Though we haven't spent much time together, I sense you are a very tender-hearted person. The other day, you played with the children and even shared candy with them. Your divorce surely isn't your fault." To be honest, I hadn't cried when I made the decision to leave, nor had I wept during the divorce proceedings, but at his words, I felt an inexplicable swell of emotion, my eyes brimming as I struggled to maintain my composure. Perhaps it was the unfamiliarity of the surroundings or the effects of the alcohol that loosened my tongue. But I found myself divulging the entirety of my relationship with Jiang Yuyan, eventually pouring out my sorrows over our glasses of wine. "Did I do something wrong?" I choked out. "I feel as if I've been mistaken from the very beginning, but what could I have done?" Gu Fei moved closer, wrapping his arm around me as he gently patted my back. "It's not your fault, but this damned world is just like that. Many things are beyond our control, and as long as you've done your best without regrets, that's enough. This merely indicates he isn't the right person for you. Perhaps the right one awaits you in the future." Rain often arrives without warning. Just as we continued our revelry, a torrential downpour suddenly began. We stood there, drenched like drowned rats, and by the time a car returned us to the hotel, night had already fallen. The alcohol was beginning to wear off, and I felt awkward, scrambling for conversation. "That bottle of champagne was quite good. I had planned to finish it, but alas. Gu Fei said nothing. It wasn't too long before there was a knock at my door. He stood there, holding 2 bottles of champagne, a smile illuminating his face. I just asked the hotel for these. Would you like to share a glass? Outside, the rain lashed down, lightning carving silver streaks across the darkened sky. Gu Fei, perhaps fresh from a shower, had damp hair that dripped water, glistening down his collarbone and slowly soaking his shirt, which clung to his physique, revealing the contours of his well-defined chest. Compelled by an inexplicable urge, I opened the door.
Sure.
That evening, we leaned against the couch, watching the relentless rain and the silver lightning that streaked across the sky, lost in conversation, though most of it was me speaking while he listened quietly. As the wine flowed, I shot him a glance, feigning displeasure. Why are you so quiet? Are you even listening? He had indulged as well, his gaze fixated on my lips, wordlessly entranced. Outside, thunder rumbled, and the wind whipped the sheer curtains. Gu Fei and I sat facing each other, gazing blankly. I suddenly noticed his long lower eyelashes, his eyes reminiscent of peeled lychees, the contrast of dark and light strikingly vivid, evoking the innocence of a bewildered creature. There was an endearing quality tinged with an underlying wildness and aggression. I want to kiss you, may I? He tilted his head, his eyes wide with a dreamy allure. In the next moment, I seized his collar and pressed my lips against his. To hell with the rules, to hell with restraint, to hell with the entire world. In that moment, I yearned only to follow my heart, whether it be freedom or abandon. All I sought was to forget everything for a fleeting instant and relish the present. Seconds later, the situation reversed. Gu Fei grasped my wrist, his lips, imbued with the scent of wine, took the lead. The sound of rain intensified, the world outside cloaked in darkness, save for the occasional roar of thunder that fractured the night sky. It felt as if the universe had turned upside down, leaving only the two of us, clinging to one another, incessantly seeking warmth. Our 10-day journey soon drew to a close, marking the time for my return home. Gu Fei, reluctant to part ways, held tightly to my hand. I'm heading to Tanzania next. Would you care to join me? I'll handle everything. You just need to come along. I gazed into his sparkling eyes, smiling as I shook my head. I had indulged in enough madness, reveled in enough abandon. It was time to rein in my heart. Can I reach out to you when I return? He asked cautiously. I remained silent, waving my hand as I turned to board the plane. Truthfully, I quite liked Gu Fei. Who wouldn't he be fond of such a young, handsome lad, brimming with youthful exuberance? Being with him made me feel rejuvenated. Yet, the possibility of us was simply unattainable. Occasional madness is but a fleeting, ethereal dream. I have stumbled once in the realm of affection and wish not to tread the same path again. As soon as the plane landed, my phone was inundated with frantic notifications. On the other end, Jiang Yuyan's voice was laced with urgency and fatigue. Chi-Chi is in trouble. She is at the central hospital. Please come at once. I hurried to the hospital, finding Jiang Qi's frail form lying on the hospital bed, her complexion flushed, her eyes tightly shut. What has happened? I exclaimed, turning sharply to Jiang Yuyan. Though I had relinquished custody of Jiang Qi, she remains my biological child, and seeing her in such a state tugged at my heartstrings. Jiang Yuyan's brow was furrowed, an unusual blend of guilt and anger etched on his face. A few days prior, he had paused, mentioning a project at his company. I had been rather busy and entrusted Chi-Chi's care to Xiang Nan. He rubbed his forehead and said, she promised to take good care of the child, yet when Chi-Chi fell ill, she attended a high-fashion show instead. I was unaware. The child was home alone with a high fever until the nanny discovered her. I shot him a cold glance. Did you not assert that Xiang Nan would treat her well? Jiang Yuyan fell silent. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a flustered Xiang Nan rushed in, her attire a stark contrast to the somber atmosphere. Upon glancing at Jiang Qi, her complexion paled, and she hastily approached Jiang Yuyan, her voice laced with desperation. Yuyan, please listen. I truly had no idea Chi-Chi was unwell. Had I known, I would never have left. The moment I received the news, I rushed back. Jiang Yuyan regarded her coolly and queried, since you entered, you have been explaining yourself. Did you not once inquire about Jiang Qi's condition? Xiang Nan was rendered speechless, unable to articulate a response. Jiang Yuyan scoffed, The child briefly awakened and expressed discomfort to you, yet you deceived her into believing you would buy her a cake. Before departing, Xiangnan raised her voice defensively. That's not true. He is just a child, fabricating stories. He is lying. Just then, a weak voice broke through. Jiangqi opened her eyes and murmured, I did not lie. I told you I was unwell, and you asked if I wanted cake, promising to buy it for me. But then you never returned. Her expression was icy, devoid of the affection she once had for Xiangnan. I know you wish to bear a child for father, and see me as an obstacle. You want me gone, don't you? I was stunned. Jiangqi had always been dependent on Xiangnan, and I had never witnessed him speak to her in such a detached manner. Xiangnan's deceit had been exposed, and her face flushed with embarrassment. She approached Jiangqi, attempting to grasp his hand, soothingly saying, What nonsense are you spouting? Auntie did not mean any harm. I was unaware of your suffering. You enjoy cake, don't you? I will go buy you the biggest and best one right now. Jiangqi merely withdrew his hand, turning his head away. I stepped outside to inquire about Jiangqi's condition and encountered the family nanny. We had developed a cordial rapport over the years, and upon seeing me, she sighed. Madam, the young master is quite pitiable. He is still so young and naive. When others indulge him, he truly believes they care for him. At his age, how could he comprehend that only a biological mother would genuinely cherish him? What has transpired between them? I asked. The nanny glanced at the ward, lowering her voice. I do not wish to speak ill of Miss Yang, but her previous kindness towards the young master was merely a ploy to appease the master. Once you were sidelined, her treatment of him grew increasingly perfunctory. At times, when the young master sought her out, she would not even afford him a kind word, dismissing him outright. That day, I overheard her discussing wanting a biological child with the master. Madam, do you not find it perplexing that the master cannot see which woman would genuinely care for a child left behind? Once she has her own, will there be room for the young master in this household? I suspect she deliberately left the young master home alone, believing that once she had her own child, he would become an impediment. She suddenly halted, noticing my expression, and murmured, Perhaps I am overthinking this. Upon returning to the room, I found Jiangqi receiving in 4. Thankfully, his fever had subsided, and the doctor assured me that he was stable. I intended to leave shortly, but Jiangqi suddenly called out to me. Alone on the bed, his small frame enveloped in white sheets, he appeared utterly forlorn. Mama, he reached out to me, his eyes glistening, reminiscent of an abandoned puppy. Will you stay with me? I miss you. Truth be told, my heart ached for him. I should not hold a grudge against such a young child. After all, he is my own flesh and blood. Yet, inexplicably, as I gazed at him, I was astonished to find myself devoid of any feelings of compassion. His face brought to mind memories of him clinging to Xiangnan, telling me it was I who should depart. Rest well. I must take my leave, I finally said. Unsure of what else to say, I turned to leave. Jiangqi gazed at me longingly, his lips moving as if to speak, but tears cascaded down his cheeks instead. Jiang Yuyen followed me out, stopping me with a weary expression. Xiangwan, I have reflected on our previous situation. I realize I may have overstepped. You know Xiangnan and I were together for a long time, and your sudden appearance left me disoriented. However, I have come to terms with our marriage and our child, Jiangqi. We shared happiness during those years, and the child deserves a complete family. Please return to us. I glanced at him, a sense of absurdity washing over me. When I had desperately pleaded to maintain our family, he had scoffed at my efforts. Now that I had finally reached the point of utter disappointment and was prepared to leave, he sought to retain me. Is human nature truly so base? Or did he only realize my value once I had departed, believing my presence would grant him comfort? I remained silent, turning away. That evening, as I was engrossed in sketching, a knock resounded at the door. Cautiously, I approached. Who is it? A male voice replied, Your neighbor just moved in. Thought I'd introduce myself. I was taken aback and flung open the door. Goof-Face stood before me, clad in a crisp white shirt with his sleeves rolled up, his meticulously styled bangs falling over his amber eyes. With a cheerful smile, he held out a tray. I baked some small cakes. Would you like to try? I was dumbfounded. How did you end up here? I had not contacted him since returning from Africa, ignoring his many messages. I believed our chances were non-existent and sought to minimize my losses before becoming too entangled. Gu Fei shot me a sidelong glance, a mix of complaint and playfulness in his tone. You are truly heartless. I sent so many messages, yet you didn't even bother to reply. Was I merely a pastime for you?
I was still somewhat dazed.
Weren't you in Tanzania? Humph. After being cast aside, who has the heart to remain in Tanzania? I immediately booked a second flight back home after you left. Let me clarify, I didn't track you down. You had posted about living in this neighborhood. And I simply inquired with the property management to find out your address. Your neighbor wasn't keen on selling, but I offered 20% above market value. And he agreed instantly. He acted as if he were at home, making himself comfortable in my space, even opening the shoe cabinet. Upon noticing the absence of men's slippers, he couldn't suppress a smirk before quickly composing himself. My place isn't ready yet, so you'll have to put me up for a few days. If you don't, I'll have nowhere to go. He prattled on, settling into the sofa as if it were his own. Why are you standing there? Have a seat. Oh no. This is my home, I retorted, exasperated. What gives you the right to assume you can stay? Suddenly, Gu Fei sprang up, indignation etched on his face, accusing Xiangwan. What do you mean by this? Are you the kind of woman who abandons people once you've had your way? Today, I have just turned 24, and it is my first time, do you know that? You took away my first experience and expect to walk away unscathed? Do you not understand that chastity is the most precious gift a man can offer? Having deprived me of my first, how am I to find a partner in the future? Will any other woman still desire me? Am I destined to lead a solitary existence for the rest of my life? As he continued to speak with escalating fervor, I became increasingly befuddled, instinctively attempting to clarify. That is not what I meant. His anger intensified. Then what do you mean? I don't care. If you don't want me, I will leap from your balcony. Half an hour later, Gu Fei sat on the sofa, arms crossed, wearing a sullen expression. I gingerly offered him a glass of water, saying, Don't be upset. Have some water. You must be parched after all that talking. He turned his head away in silence. I couldn't help but laugh through my tears. All right. Stop the fuss. I agree to let you stay. You can live here. I was aware that he was speaking nonsense. Yet facing such a countenance while being accused made me feel a twinge of guilt. Moreover, based on experience, I sensed that Gu Fei's words held a kernel of truth. He likely was indeed a novice in such matters. Gu Fei's demeanor gradually improved, and he cast a sidelong glance at me. You're finally being reasonable. Thus, we commenced our bewildering cohabitation. Although we had not officially defined our relationship, we engaged in all the activities typical of a couple. At times, I reassured myself that Gu Fei was a commendable companion. Despite his affluent appearance and expensive attire, he exhibited no airs of a spoiled rich boy. His eyes were ever diligent, and he took great pleasure in cleanliness, preparing delectable meals. Most importantly, he lacked the odious habits often associated with men. He would promptly wash his underwear and socks instead of tossing them about. The toilet remained perpetually pristine, and he diligently tidied up even the stray hairs I shed in the bathroom. I must confess, ever since he entered my life, I finally grasped the essence of having a partner. With such a capable aide at home, each day seemed to brighten. In his presence, I hardly felt the pangs of divorce. Every evening, we would take a stroll after dinner. Upon returning, he would work for a while at the computer, and then we would snuggle up on the sofa to watch a film together. There was only one minor annoyance. Our differing tastes in movies often led to a lengthy battle over the remote control. He would exclaim, Why should I defer to you just because you're a woman? We'll compete fairly. Rock, paper, scissors. After several days of this, we established a routine. Horror films on odd days and romantic films on even days, with horror being my preference and romance his. To my surprise, we managed to cohabit for such an extended period that by my birthday, we had been together for over 2 months. In the past, I seldom celebrated my birthday, as neither family nor he Huai Chuan ever remembered it. The only person who did, my foster mother, passed away last year, leaving me to occasionally forget it myself. Thus, when I returned home to a table laden with dishes and a cake, I instinctively asked, What occasion warrants such a feast? Gu Fei approached and playfully tapped my head. You've forgotten your own birthday? After a moment of contemplation, I suddenly realized that today was indeed my birthday. Gu Fei appeared quite exhilarated. His hair was meticulously styled, each strand exuding an air of festivity, and the silk shirt he wore accentuated his broad shoulders and narrow waist, while his black trousers made his legs seem almost as tall as my waist. To top it off, he donned a strawberry-patterned apron, resembling a refined and delicate husband. I found myself at a loss for words, my heart softening yet tinged with a hint of bitterness. Thank you, but there's no need for such extravagance. I've never celebrated my birthday before. He replied, you didn't tea before, but from now on, we will celebrate together. Birthdays are significant. How could we let them pass unnoticed? He pulled out a chair for me. Please have a seat. Today, I have poured my utmost skill into this meal. So far, you are the only one who has had the privilege of tasting it. Lucky you, right? I couldn't help but chuckle. Truth be told, the feeling of being cherished and valued is indeed delightful. The meal was thoroughly enjoyable. Gu Fei's culinary skills were as remarkable as he claimed. During our days together, I had not cooked once. I was almost being spoiled to the point of becoming incapable of self-sufficiency. Make a wish. After dinner, he placed the candles atop the cake, raising an eyebrow at me, his eyes sparkling. In the candlelight, his gaze shimmered in an otherworldly hue. As I looked into his eyes, an unexpected wish sprang forth within me. If only I could celebrate my birthday with him like this every year. When I opened my eyes again, I was startled to find Gu Fei had drawn closer to me. Up close, his beauty was even more striking, his eyes akin to those of a siren, deep and enchanting, as if ready to draw one in. What did you wish for? He inquired, tilting his head slightly. My cheeks flushed, and I hesitated to respond. Gu Fei gently cupped my face, his crimson lips parting. Is it a wish related to me? You've been gazing at me. If I weren't looking at you, how would I know you were looking at me? I retorted, unable to suppress my stubbornness. Indeed, Gu Fei suddenly laughed. I've been watching you. Have you felt it? The lights in the living room flickered, as if malfunctioning, yet neither of us spoke. Moments later, a cool kiss landed on my lips. I did not resist. I closed my eyes and began to respond. My actions seemed to unleash all of Gu Fei's pent-up restraint. He enveloped me in his arms, his grip becoming increasingly assertive. For a fleeting moment, I felt as though my breath had been stolen, my mind blinking as I sank into the depths of suffocation. I could not tell how long it lasted, but just as my legs grew weak, nearly collapsing against him, the doorbell rang. Gu Fei ignored it, yet the incessant ringing persisted. He pulled away from me, panting, and cursed as he rushed to open the door. Did the fruit I ordered arrive already? I thought it was for tomorrow. He halted mid-motion, encountering Jiang Yuyan at the door. Jiang Yuyan held a cake in his hands, his gaze flitting between my slightly swollen lips and Gu Fei, his expression darkening. Narrowing his eyes, he questioned Gu Fei. Who are you? Gu Fei appraised him before grinning at the cake in his hands. Ex-husband? What a pleasure to meet you. I'm Wan's current partner. Jiang Yuyan stared at me incredulously for a lengthy moment. Xiangwan, how long has it been since our divorce, and you've already found someone new? His tone was laced with fury and disbelief. I forced a smile. Jiang Yuyan, don't act as if I've cheated on you. You were already entangled with Xiang Nan before our divorce. What right do you have to judge me? Jiang Yuyan fell silent. After a prolonged pause, he closed his eyes and struggled to suppress his anger. I came today to celebrate your birthday. He no longer regarded Gu Fei as though he were invisible. Xiangwan, we've been together for so many years. Jiang Qi is already this old. Our bond cannot be compared to a few months you spend with someone else. I admit I hurt you regarding Xiang Nan. I can make amends. I don't mind if you're with him. Let us reconcile. I nearly burst into laughter and grasped Gu Fei's hand, looking at Jiang Yuyan with sincerity. Why should we reconcile? Is it because Jiang Qi needs a mother? Or because you've realized life without me isn't as splendid as you imagined? Jiang Yuyan remained silent for a moment, then murmured, neither. It's because I've suddenly realized I cannot let you go. I return home to an empty house. Your belongings remain, yet you are absent. It's unbearable. A fleeting look of confusion crossed his face. I felt a surge of anger. Jiang Yuyan, do you comprehend the turmoil I felt when you spent the night with Xiang Nan? How dare you, after inflicting such pain upon me, casually approach me with a proposition of reconciliation? Who do you think you are? I raised my voice. The greatest regret of my life is having once harbored feelings for you. Even the sight of you now sickens me. Get out of my sight and never return. Jiang Yuan was momentarily taken aback, a flicker of hurt crossing his eyes. With a hint of urgency, he replied, I acknowledge that I have wronged you. I recognize that my prior actions were inexcusable, and I vow to make amends. I will never repeat my mistakes. Gu Fei stepped in front of him, coldly stating, My girlfriend has commanded you to leave. Do you not comprehend human language? Typically, Gu Fei would indulge in affectionate antics before me, allowing me to overlook the fact that he stood nearly 6 feet tall, exuding an imposing presence alongside He Huaichuan. I grasped Gu Fei's arm and positioned myself beside him. Jiang Yuyan, I have found a new love. Please do not disturb me again. Jiang Yuyan stared at me in disbelief, then gazed deeply into my eyes. His own were tinged with red as he responded, Very well, Xiang Wan. Rest assured, I shall not intrude upon your life any longer. With that, he abruptly turned and strode away. Days later, I learned from a friend that Xiang Nan was pregnant. She had posted her pregnancy test result on social media, captioned, The fruit of love. As summer drew to a close, I suddenly found myself retching uncontrollably. After calculating the timing of my menstrual cycle, I trembled as I purchased a pregnancy test. When the vivid double lines appeared before me, I was rendered utterly speechless. Sitting on the couch, unsure of how to respond. We had always taken precautions, save for that one time I had been too intoxicated to remember. And yet that day was supposed to be safe. Upon hearing the news, Gu Fei was equally stunned, then suddenly enveloped me in a tight embrace, laughing joyously. I had never witnessed him so exuberant. He hurriedly paced before the sofa, like a headless chicken, muttering, We can still order a wedding dress in time. I know a place in France that crafts exquisite handmade gowns. As for the wedding venue, how many guests should we invite? Darling, how many can your family accommodate? Should we invite your ex-husband? No, we must first schedule a prenatal checkup. I remember we had been drinking that day, Xiang Nan. Noticing my dazed expression, he suddenly grew anxious. You don't intend to terminate this pregnancy, do you? I silently touched my abdomen, my heart a tumult of confusion. To be honest, I didn't know. I had once adored children. While pregnant with Hiqi, my heart brimmed with hope and affection. But he had shattered my heart. If I were to give birth to another child like him, I was at a loss. Gu Fei seemed to sense my distress and approached, gently caressing my belly, offering solace. While it pains me, I respect your decisions entirely. However, I must say, my child will not turn out to be an ungrateful wretch. Should he reject you as a mother, I shall take matters into my own hands. What utter nonsense. I couldn't help but chuckle, letting out a resigned sigh. Let us first visit the hospital. The prenatal examination yielded no issues, and Gu Fei was positively elated. Observing his joy inexplicably soothed my own heart. Perhaps this child would indeed be different from Hiqi. He would be born out of love, not resentment. I was no fool. I could sense Gu Fei's affection for me, and I understood my own feelings for him. Perhaps this was fate granting me a chance to reclaim happiness. Just as I was about to speak, my phone rang unexpectedly. Hello, we are from the Qing City Public Security Bureau. Are you Hiqi's mother? My instinct was to dismiss it as a scam, but when I heard the next sentence, a chill ran down my spine. Hiqi has been kidnapped. Please proceed immediately to Tianlu Building, Block D. Upon arriving at Tianlu Building, I was taken aback. On the rooftop, Jiang Yuan was facing off against Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan's hair was disheveled, her former elegance stripped away, her eyes red and wild. She held Hiqi hostage, a knife pressed against his neck. Her voice sharp and hoarse. Step aside. I will kill this wretched child today. My mother nearly collapsed beside me, tears streaming down her face as she gasped, How did it come to this? What on earth happened? I seized Xiang Nan's clothing. Why would she suddenly want to kill Hiqi? My mother, in her weeping, struggled to articulate the events. But through her fragmented narrative, I began to grasp the situation. After my departure, Xiang Nan no longer needed to placate Hiqi to drive me away. She simply cast him aside, growing increasingly hostile, intent on having another child with Jiang Yuyan to secure the Jiang family fortune. When Jiang Yuyan refused, she got him drunk and slept with him. Whether by fortune or misfortune, she became pregnant. Eager to inform Jiang Yuyan and force a marriage, she was met with vehement resistance. He insisted she terminate the pregnancy, leading to a fierce argument. Xiang Nan accused him of still harboring feelings for me. deriding me as a fool, asserting that her child would be no different than a wretched ingrate. This accusation was overheard by He-Chi, who, sensitive as children are, had sensed Xiang Nan's recent hostility. Coupled with relative subtle sympathies for his mother's departure, they instilled in him the belief that Xiang Nan would not treat him kindly, that once she bore a biological child, he would have no place in the family. Unable to endure it any longer, He-Chi had pushed Xiang Nan down the stairs as she descended. Xiang Nan was rushed for emergency care, yet the child could not be saved. "Your son is truly heartless," my mother lamented, sobbing. "Xiang Nan suffered severe hemorrhage. They had to remove her uterus, and she will never bear children again." How could she not go mad? I stood frozen, utterly astonished by the chaos that had unfolded during my absence. In this tangled web of events, I could scarcely discern right from wrong. It was a complete mess. Yet at that moment, I could not afford to rationalize, no matter what. He-Chi was my biological son, and I could not stand idly by as he faced death. Just as I was about to rush forward, Jiang Yuyan suddenly spoke coldly. "Xiang Nan, release the child, or I will ensure you pay dearly." Xiang Nan nearly broke down, screaming, "Jiang Yuyan, do you think only this wretched child is your flesh and blood? The one in my womb is also your lineage. How can you be so heartless?" "My flesh and blood?" Jiang Yuyan retorted, producing a test result. "I had a DNA test done after your miscarriage. That child was never mine." That day, I was utterly intoxicated. How could anything have happened between us? He shot a glance at my mother, his gaze sharp and frigid. "I had people investigate. Guess what I discovered? The father of your unborn child is your family's driver. All along, you simply sought to bear a child to coerce me into marriage. And your lies have led you to this fate. Now you dare to take your anger out on a child." Xiang Nan, taken aback by the revelation, faltered for a moment, but her expression soon morphed into one of bitter resentment. Driven to madness, she screeched. "So what if that's the case? Jiang Yuyan, do you think I wanted to lie? If you had been willing to have a child with me, I would never have sought solace with some driver." She wept and laughed, her demeanor ferocious. "What have I done wrong? It was always meant to be mine. You are mine, the child is mine, the marriage is mine. If not for that wretched Xiang Wan stealing everything from me, I would not have ended up like this. It's all her fault. Today, I will make her watch her child die." He Huichuan narrowed his eyes. "Xiang Wan is the true daughter of the Xiang family. You are the one who stole her life. Otherwise, she would have been the one with me from the start." "Nonsense." Xiang Nan's hands trembled. "It is mine, all mine." The knife trembled as it sliced through Jiang Qi's neck, prompting him to wail, extending his hand towards me in terror. "Mother, save me." In that critical moment, Jiang Yuyan seized the opportunity while Xiang Nan was distracted, lunging forward with ferocity. Caught off guard, Xiang Nan was unable to react as Jiang Qi was yanked away and pushed aside. However, just as Jiang Yuyan intended to subdue Xiang Nan, she, fueled by an inexplicable surge of strength, suddenly brandished the knife towards him, exclaiming, "Since you refuse to let me go, let us perish together." Jiang Yuyan was taken aback by her fervor, never anticipating her desire for mutual destruction. In the blink of an eye, the dagger was all that remained in his grasp, crimson blossoms erupting from his white shirt. Xiang Nan was swiftly apprehended by the police. I waited anxiously outside the operating room for what felt like an eternity until the doctor finally emerged, his brow furrowed. The dagger was less than a centimeter away from piercing his heart. "He is still not out of danger and will require further observation in the ICU." Jiang Qi, standing nearby, appeared ashen. Since being rescued, he had not uttered a word, remaining dazed as if traumatized. Gu Fei, at a loss for words, could only grasp my hand tightly. I patted his hand gently, crouching down to embrace Jiang Qi. Trembling, he eventually clung to me, weeping uncontrollably. "Mother, I am so scared." I didn't mean to push her. She called me a little bastard and said she would drive me away once her child was born. I was terrified. "I never expected it would come to this, Mother." His small body felt icy, fists gripping my clothing tightly, red-rimmed eyes lifting to meet mine. "Mother, will you come back to me? I truly understand my mistake. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. I deeply regret it, Mother. I miss you so much." He choked on his words, unable to express himself further as I held him close, letting out a soft sigh. 3 days later, I heard that Jiang Yuyan was out of danger. He was the last scion of the Jiang family, and following this incident, the Jiang family had severed all ties with the Xiang family, canceling all collaborations. The Xiang family's financial chain collapsed, forcing them to urgently seek loans from banks. However, the banks had also received warnings from the Jiang family. Everyone was aware of the Jiang family stance, seizing the opportunity to suppress the Xiang family and acquire their assets at a fraction of their worth. My father, in a bid to preserve our assets, placed his trust in a so-called investor from England, only to be swindled and left with nothing, forcing the company to declare bankruptcy. Subsequently, my mother called me, lamenting that all their properties and vehicles had been mortgaged and their funds were frozen, leaving them no choice but to rent a place to live. She was inconsolable. At my age, I can only find work as a cleaner. After working 8 hours yesterday, my back aches so much I can barely move. Child, what are your father and I to do? I understood she sought my assistance. She indeed gave me life, yet she had never raised me. As for the medical expenses for my adoptive mother over the years, I had married Jiang Yuyen to secure the Jiang family's protection. I owed her nothing. I ended the call without saying a word. After some time, I began to show signs of pregnancy. Gu Fei was preoccupied with wedding arrangements, yet planning the wedding was exhausting. Thus, we agreed to first obtain our marriage certificate and hold the ceremony after the child's birth. One evening, while walking home hand in hand with Gu Fei, I unexpectedly spotted Jiang Yuyen and Jiang Qi downstairs. He had lost considerable weight since we last met, likely due to his injury. His once-fitting clothes now hung loosely on him, revealing prominent collarbones and a pallid complexion. Gu Fei glanced at me, his tone laced with sarcasm. Do you need me to step aside for a moment? I stood on tiptoes and kissed him. Just 5 minutes, I promise. Jiang Yuyen averted his gaze. Gu Fei crossed his arms. Fine, I'll watch from the balcony. If it exceeds 5 minutes, you'll hear about it. With that, he shot Jiang Yuyen a fierce glare before ascending the stairs. Jiang Yuyen and I remained silent, facing each other until he spoke first. How have you been lately? Perhaps due to his recent ordeal, the former confidence and superiority he once exuded had dissipated, leaving him appearing somewhat restrained and anxious. I nodded. I'm fine, and you? Jiang Yuyen let out a bitter laugh. What do you think? Since you left, I feel as though my very essence has been drained. It has been ages since I've had a decent night's sleep. Why bother? I sighed. Indeed, why bother? He echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. I once had everything, yet I squandered it all. He lifted his gaze, a glimmer of water in his eyes, tinged with a touch of pleading. Xiangwan, we had our good times. Only now do I realize how much I love you. It wasn't he that you couldn't live without me. It was I who couldn't live without you. Alas, it took losing you for me to see clearly. I knew speaking these words was shameless, yet I asked, can you grant me another chance? We have a child. Consider him. Would you be able to forsake him? I touched my belly, interrupting him. But Jiang Yuyen, I am already expecting another child. Jiang Yuyen was momentarily stunned. You're pregnant? His gaze gradually fell, his voice tinged with bitterness. Is it his? I nodded yes. I don't yet know if it's a boy or girl, but I would cherish either. I am embarking on a new life. Jiang Yuyen. You should also look forward. Before he could respond, Jiang Qi burst into tears. I don't want mother to have another child. If mother has another child, will she abandon me? You said you loved Chi-Chi the most. You said you loved Chi-Chi the most, mother. Jiang Qi lunged towards me, but Jiang Yuyen restrained him. His voice trembled slightly, yet he quickly regained composure. Xiangwan. He seemed poised to say more, but I glanced at my phone, offering an apologetic smile. I'm sorry, I need to head up, otherwise, my partner will grow jealous. With that, I turned and departed. I felt his gaze linger on me for a long while, yet I did not look back. 5 months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Her eyes and face resembled mine, while her nose and mouth were akin to Gu Fei's. Her skin was fair and tender, and her eyes sparkled with life. Utterly adorable. She was very attached to me, crying if she could not see me. Gu Fei was enamored with her, naming her Gu Muwan. 6 months later, we celebrated our wedding in Sri Lanka. On the day of the ceremony, I received a red envelope containing a check, the amount followed by a string of zeros, and signed. With only a few words, May you enjoy a harmonious union for 100 years. I turned to look into the distance, catching a fleeting glimpse of a man in a suit disappearing behind a tree. What's wrong? Gu Fei approached, wrapping his arm around my shoulders. I shook my head. Nothing, let us go. The banquet is about to begin. He led me away, the sunlight perfectly illuminating our path, the sky a brilliant blue.
The end.
Thank you for listening. We shall meet again in the next story.